Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Welcome to the Growth Edge powered by the African MSME Collective. My name is Chesubide Talitwala Greg, and it's such a pleasure, as always, to be in this space. Karibuni sana, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you have your cup of coffee, your bottle of water, whatever it is you need to join us in our quick conversation. Now, this is an excellent space for emerging businesses, micro small businesses, because what we provide here is actionable insights that you can put in place today for results starting tomorrow. Nothing is a silver bullet in building biasharas. Nothing is a silver bullet in building businesses. But what we do in this space is we provide you the right information so that you can start right, you can build and stabilize, you can scale, and you can be sustainably profitable. That's what we're looking to do. So we're looking at the long game, and we're looking to keep you engaged and keep you growing and learning with us. So welcome into our space. As always, we are having a conversation with one of the most interesting people I have in my ecosystem. That's my opinion. So you gotta meet him first, and then you know that he's as fun as I think he is. But Joe Mukoko is our business development and sales at the African MSME Collective, but also he has over 25 years experience in business, coming from a financial background, working in the banking system, and has been in and around small businesses and emerging businesses for a long time. So welcome, Joe. What is the most exciting thing that you learned in the ecosystem in the last couple of days?
Thank you, Chesubure. First, here's my water. You told us to grab water. Here's my water. I have grabbed my water, so I am okay. Then number two, when you've said 25 years, I'm like, whoa. They'll start calling me a fossil very soon. But anyway, it's good to be a fossil and an ancestor
Don't
because
worry,
age.
Gen Alpha call you an ancestor, so we're good.
They call me a fossil, so I'm okay. But you see, it comes with age, also comes with wisdom and opportunity. So maybe now those discounts that shops give and they see, those who are over this, they will be in trouble because I'll just step up and I'll be carrying my ID. And then I tell them I qualify for the discount. Most exciting thing that has happened is just seeing businesses being able to bounce back. And even those that have been written off being able to bounce back. That's the most interesting, exciting thing that I've seen. A sad thing has been seeing some of the businesses that have been running for years and we've always looked up to not being able to withstand the economic downturn and the interest rates and the loans and the COVID debts have now come home. You say the chickens have come home to roost. So now it's come home for them, and it's not looking so pretty because some of these organizations or some of these businesses, which started as small, grew to medium and grew to large enterprises, are letting go of up to 400, 500 employees, which is not good for the economy and also for the other, a corporate like that, then there are other attendant small businesses that are supported by it, in terms of transporters, distributors, service staff, technicians, suppliers, people who'd want to stock their things in their shops for revenue share. So that's what is disturbing. But the management has said that they'll bounce back. They are working on a restructuring plan that will allow them possibly in another 18 to 24 months to start experiencing growth again. So that resilience that businesses show in terms of I'm down, but I'm not out. I'm down, but I'll still come back is exciting.
There's something you have said that has really, really struck me. They will bounce back in the next 18 to 24 months. Now, because they support, there are other smaller businesses that are in their ecosystem, it struck me that some of those smaller businesses may not have the capacity to wait the 18 to 24 months. So this speaks to when we talk about everything in the ecosystem is interlinked, that we cannot have the big corporates without the small businesses and vice versa. And I think many times we are unaware or we are not tracking the interlink of those two matrices. Because we are talking about when we give funding and financing to the big guys, there are some small guys who come along. But when those guys struggle, the ripple effect is not just the 400 people they've let go of. It is so if we say 400, you say 400 families that have been affected by that downturn from one business. It means in the localities where these 400 people live, the small businesses, the chemist, the food seller, the hospital, the public transport system, even down to the maize vendor on the road, the mini mart, every other business in the ecosystems of these 400 people are impacted. And that for me is profound because we track bigger matrices. We track, they have let go of so many people, or their income is down by. But their income being down by 100 million, 5 million, 2 million means that money is not in the economy, so it's not running, but also means that another 20 businesses, maybe even 1,000, because it's 400 people in 400 different places, 1,000 businesses are impacted. That's something I think we need to talk about eventually. Of course, not on this show, but we probably need to have one show where we're just discussing the impact of the collapse of one business.
I think that would be an excellent place to start next year when we are talking about, maybe in January, when you're talking about what to look out for and where to start in 2025. So maybe in January we can have that discussion so that we allow people to enjoy Christmas without having to start thinking and running mathematics. But yes, it's profound because the ripple effect is massive. The ripple effect is massive.
Fantastic. So even on the back of that is a perfect segue for what we wanted to discuss today. And today we're going to look at trends. And we will not necessarily be listing all the trends, but what is the importance and the value of trends when we're running businesses? That's what we're having the conversation about today. Why is that important? Because I think too many times we are running businesses from hearsay. We're assuming we know we are. And the beauty about small business owners, actually all business owners, there's, this, I just have a feeling something has changed. And then when you go and look at the market, something has actually changed. So it's round about that. But what I want us to discuss today is how do we identify trackable, traceable trends? That's a question for you, Joe.
How do we identify?
Yes, trends. Trackable, traceable. There are those ones that you feel there's something going on, but then they're the ones you can track.
I think the best way to do that as a business owner is to remain commercially aware. And whether you like it or not, you have to be aware of your surroundings and your environment. And that would be the best way for you to know what's going on. Have your pulse connected to, 1, your industry, 2, the regulator, 3, the government, 4, globally, what's going on, because we are very connected. So you have to start from the local level and use those 4 matrices to look at what's going on.
When you say your industry, let's give us an example of a business and how it understands what industry it falls into.
Fantastic. Every business falls in an industry. We fall in an industry with you.
Yes.
The vegetable seller in the market falls in an industry. The young man selling eggs, chapati, doner kebab, and what do we call that thing? KDF. They fall in an industry. Let's take an example of the young men who sell this, the boiled eggs, and if they are to operate, what are the licenses they need to operate? How do the equipment need to look? What do they need to do to operate? If I come to you and you do not have safety papers, what do we call those papers that they wear? The gloves, eh?
Gloves.
And you're serving me just like that. It's a problem. And I am coming and your display doesn't look so well done or well maintained. We are grateful to the companies that are able to supply this equipment to these young men and women. Where do they store their equipment? There was an incident the other day where they had not been stored in proper storage facilities that met sanitary standards. And so they could not be allowed to go back to work with them. The county government took them for distraction because they said maybe they have bred bacteria, we don't know, and you're hitting them. Now, so those are some of the things you need to look at. What licenses do I need? How do I need to be able to present myself? What does the government speak about our business? And then what are the trends going around in terms of I'm actually selling boiled eggs. Are customers eating boiled eggs? I'm selling doner kebabs. Are customers eating those doner kebabs? Could be selling something that clients consider to be unhealthy. Then I'm still insisting on selling. But when I'm looking at my books, it's recording a loss every time. So how do you balance that? Or one that is going to impact businesses heavily next year is on leather. Like, for example, the government of Kenya is going to ban importation of finished leather products. And any finished leather products are going to attract 100% duty, not 35, 100% duty.
That's all the shoes, the bags.
Everything, the belts, 100% duty. Why? They would like the local leather industry to grow. So if you are bringing in leather goods and like you said earlier in the show, when we say something has changed and I don't know what has changed. All of a sudden you bring your goods, and as much as they're luxury, your clients can no longer afford, because if I add duty 100%, that means for me to be able to sell my product, my margin needs to go up by 200%.
Yeah.
Now that's drastic price shift might drive off your consumers. So it's important that for all of us to be aware in whichever way, however small or minute you might think your business is, it is affected by both internal and external factors. And those external factors are what we are calling as trends. Because even for the hookers, what do they need in order to be able to operate? There are things that maybe you might try to sell and it's illegal for you to sell. You know, like when they're selling knives and stuff on the road. Once in a while, the police just go berserk on them and decide, we are arresting you because you're selling illegal things. You should not be selling pangas. Other days they're selling.
Selling weapons.
Yes, you're selling weapons. Or even that thing, they were selling teasers at some point, you know. It's not allowed. Why are you having a teaser? Why are you selling a teaser? So understanding, because when you have an issue with the law, they don't consider ignorance as being defense.
I like that, because what you're saying is we have to research other vendors within our industry, look at what they're doing. We must look at the government regulations. We must look at if there's an industry regulator. And then we must also look at what the globe is doing. And I was just sitting here thinking about the food example you shared. And I can see the food vendors at the main bus stop that I transit to often. And it's interesting, if you go there at 7 o'clock in the morning, what is on sale is different from what is on sale at 4 p.m. It's a completely different ecosystem. But what I find fascinating is just find parts of fruit. It's a tabletop, and you find this guy is selling melon, the next guy is selling pineapple, the next person is selling, and the melon and the pineapple are chopped. The pineapple actually peeled and chopped. And what they've done, those guys give a better rate. So the ones who used to vend them in the buckets, the mobile guys, are not as many, because on this lower side of the city, certain places have. And I realized those was it a trend that the market distributors saw, or did it suddenly where business has gone down? They realize, oh, those guys are over there. So I really like your explanation that we must remain commercially aware, which means our eyes and ears must be consistently open. So to anybody who thinks running a business is easy peasy, lemon squeezy, it doesn't quite work like that. So now that we've identified the trend, how do we interpret it? You've touched a little bit on that, but do you have like 3-4 steps that we can follow as business owners when we're coming to interpret the information that we are receiving?
Yes, in a very simple way, 3 steps. 1, what are you selling? Why are you selling it? Do you have the rights to sell or trade in it? And the rights, here is where, are there any regulations around what you intend to do or what you're currently doing? For example, the businesses that have been selling phones, for a long time, that industry has been regulated, but the regulator never bothered with it. But the regulations were there in terms of every phone that you sell, you have to give back feedback so that that number, that EMEA number, is put in the government system. So the other day, the regulator comes out and says, this is what has to happen, and we are all up in arms. But if you go back to when cell phones came into the market and regulations changed about fraud, it was a regulation. No one just bothered to implement it.
You're actually right.
No one bothered to implement. But you cannot now come and tell the government, no, it's law. There's an act. So what are you selling? Why are you selling it? And what rights do you have? Going back to the small businesses you've talked about that are selling the fruits. They need medical health certificates. And the council checks on that every day. They have to pay cess daily. If they don't pay, they'll not be allowed to operate. The cess is the right for them to be able to come sell their product. And believe you me, the council collects, the county government collects that cess. That early at 7 o'clock, there's someone there to collect.
Yeah. Huh? And it's never really a lot of money, technically, but in the scheme of sometimes what they're making, it's a lot.
Yes. So that would be the easiest way for you to look at. Do you have the right? So that when you pick up this information now to process it, you go back and look at it and say, this is what I intended to do. Why did I fail? Did I fail because of my internal processes, or did I fail because of the external processes? Because if the duty goes up, I shift my prices 300%, then I can't sell. Then with this information you've picked, how does it relate to what you're doing? That's what I was saying. What are you selling? Why are you selling it? And then who has given you the rights? And then finally, are your clients still there? Are there still clients? For example, when the government talked about implementing the EMEI regulation for all funds, phone distributors are saying that business has dipped because populace does not understand what government is trying to do. But what they don't understand is even with your current phone, the government already has your details, because when it was sold to you and put in a SIM card and you started operating it, automatically those details were picked by Communications Authority of Kenya. Now that has made business go down. Now they have to think of creative, innovative ways of next year. This is the business I am in. These are the regulations. How do I count? How do I talk to my clients? How do I educate my clients so that they may understand the reasons why the government is doing this, but most importantly, be able to maintain my sales levels?
You know, that's interesting. I say it's interesting because when we look at the grand scheme of things, it's so easy to sit back and complain and say government this, government that. It's so easy. And yet when we really look at the scheme of things, if government doesn't step in, then we will be unable to function profitably. So I'm really pausing, because trend analysis is about more than just what is happening in the industry. It's also about what the government intends to happen and how the industry is moving towards that. So just using your example of the implementation of an existing regulation about the IMEI cards, because I remember the first time that was instituted, we made noise. And whether or not we made noise, government still went ahead and did what they wanted to do, which I find very fascinating, but that's a conversation for another day.
These are many conversations for another day.
Because I think the role of government, and I keep sitting in spaces and I keep hearing members of the government saying our role is to create an enabling environment. But the environment to the business owner trading on the ground doesn't feel enabling, number one. Number two, government also tells us we don't talk to individuals, we talk to groups. But when we get into these groups, very, very often the issues are so east and west that we are unable to galvanize as one voice. So as we're talking about trends, I can see a critical emerging trend is the need not only to galvanize, but to speak as one, and to have multiple people saying the same thing from different dimensions. So then it leads me to ask, how do we then implement this information? Because you see, we've sat there, we've identified what's going on, the challenges is what's happening. We figured out how to interpret them. How do we make it a regular part of our lives to consistently be looking at trends and applying it to our businesses? How does knowing what's going on help us adjust our businesses for sustainability?
Thank you. Allow me to just top of my a few quick tips.
Mm-hmm.
When you get this information and you have analyzed it and you've looked at it
Mm-hmm.
and you've seen what's going on, and the end of the exercise is, do you still have customers?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is what leads us to the next point. Do you still have customers? Sometimes regulation or changes in the market mean that you don't have customers. For example, when the taxi hailing apps came, it meant that the traditional taxis had two options: remain with their existing clientele or change to the taxi hailing apps, or have a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that means if you still have customers, you have to adapt to change. You must adapt to change. You have no option. Why? Because consumer behavior and market dynamics have changed.
Mm.
How do you remain relevant? So I have picked my client from Westlands, say, he's my regular client. I have dropped him to the airport. My base is Westlands. I need to come back, but I do not want to come back with an empty ride. Because remember, a long time ago, if they didn't get anyone else, they used to charge you a two-way trip for a one-way trip.
Yes.
So what do I do once I've dropped? I switch on my hailing app. That way, I can be able to get fare coming back to my base. Then, as you're adapting to change, look at, identify the opportunities that are in that space. What opportunities exist? And as you're looking at these opportunities, what resources do you have to tap into these opportunities? So opportunities, then the resources to tap into these opportunities. With those resources, then now you're able to make decisions based on, this is what I have, this is where the market is going, this is what I can do. That also helps you as a business owner develop risk management measures. And risk management is important for any business.
Yes.
I am changing, I am bringing a taxi hailing up to my existing business model. What happens in case, if this, that then ensures that at any given point, see, this becomes part of your daily experiences. As you open up to see what's going on, how do I counter this? That is what happens. Then lastly, add technology to what you're doing. Use tools, subscribe to your channels or newsletters or things that can just keep you updated in terms of what's going on in your industry. And then when you've done all this, keep on talking about yourself during marketing. This is what we have done. This is what we are doing. It shows that you're remaining relevant both to the market and to the consumer that you're serving.
I like that. Adapt to change, assess opportunities, assess existing resources against what is needed, and figure out how to bridge the gap. Create a plan of action, adopt technology, and talk to the market. Sounds like things we can actually do every day.
It's things we do every day. I think it's just that maybe we never realize it, but now what we are telling our SMEs, be more intentional. For example, let me give you, and I like giving local examples. The route where I am, I like taking public transport because at times, so that I can talk to the drivers and conductors of this public transport, they have a lot of information, by the way. At a certain hour of the day, fare is fixed. And they'll not even negotiate with the client. But then anytime from 10 to 4 o'clock, they are advised by the owners of the vehicles, use your discretion. Don't give a discount to everyone, but use your discretion. You see, they're already using trend analysis to run their business.
Yes.
They know between this time, if I need to fill my vehicle, then I will have to carry a certain number of passengers at this fare. And then I can afford to take a certain number of customers or passengers at a reduced fare. And that way you still remain profitable.
Yes.
Another good example is the vegetable sellers, the ladies who sell us the tomatoes and
Yes.
the kale and the spinach and the coriander and all those things. So when the price changes because of supply, when weather changes at times is a problem and they have to. So what they do, depending on the season, please take note of this when you're going to the market. You will find that at times, they will not change their price. They won't change their price. But the bundle will be different.
Yes, that's true.
So at times, the bundle gets smaller. At times, the bundle is larger. But they don't change their price. So because they don't change their price, you will not realize. They'll just be like, and this for 2030 has gone low.
There are few.
There are few. What's their response to you? They tell you, this economy has become very tough. Then when it is good and the bundle is big, they give you, say, hey, and today it's more. They'll tell you, I'm rewarding my customers. That's sales language.
You remind me of the route where I live. So of course, we're down one of the major highways, which is known for traffic. But we have the expressway on the route. So there's a secondary line that has developed. And this guys only run between 6:30 a.m. and 8, and then from 4 p.m. to about 7 p.m. 7 is late, maybe about 6:30. And what they do is that they use the expressway. So the normal route is 100 shillings, but if you hear Garia Express, the vehicle for Express, you pay 30 shillings more. So I like to sit in the front as often as I can. I like to sit in the front seat. And I realized these are 33-seater vehicles. So everybody's paying an extra 30 shillings. That's 980 shillings. The expressway fee is 1,000 bob. So they will add 20 shillings. But that ETC device that allows you to zip in and out through the expressway? Now they've realized if they put that, the 3% savings on that device brings it back down to exactly 980. So now they're no longer losing the 20 shillings per trip on the expressway. Now, for the average person, 20 shillings may seem like nothing. But 20 shillings 6 to 8 times a day, every day, amounts to something at the end of the month. So it's really interesting to watch them balancing their coins, right? Or to watch the maize vendor. I have a favorite maize vendor in the bus station. And to watch him balance off how he sells and notice that certain customers, like I get a bigger piece of maize. I don't know why, but I get a bigger piece of maize because I never buy less than 3/4 of a cob. So the day I go and I say, I'm just getting half and it's 20 bob, he's like, why? You're not a person for 20 bob? I'm like, the economy. And it's so interesting how Many of us despise these really, really micro vendors, but they have a few things down to a science that is purely, if you ask me, trend analysis, purely trend analysis. Because like we said earlier, what you find on sale in the morning is not what you find in the afternoon, is not what you find in the evening. The other guys who do this really, really well is the vendors of used clothes in the same bus station. There's a guy with a shop where all standard sweaters are 50 bob. But there's another one. There are some others who come round about 6 p.m. They're there until 9, and it's kind of dark, and they'll tell you sweaters are 20 bob. You got to choose carefully from those 20 bob sweaters because you're picking them in the dark. You might think it is white. And like there's one day somewhere else, someone was selling their shoes on the roadside, and this guy bought white shoes, or so he thought. In the morning, those shoes were light pink. So that it's really interesting on how vendors position themselves, where they position themselves, how they price, how they will look at you and give you one price and look at me and give me another price, or they would just standardize. But what I find most interesting is when very often I go to those piles to look for stuff, I have the young men coming and showing me things that are not in the pile, that are slightly more expensive, that are more my style. So I find it very, very interesting just watching the small scale traders, the hawkers actually on the streets, because these guys are masters of trends. So in your parting shot, what is it that we can grab from these micro businesses that we can apply in bigger businesses?
I think all businesses need to understand one thing from trends.
Mm-hmm.
Customer preferences and expectations change over time.
Mm.
And we need to be aware of that.
Mm.
Be aware that shifts will happen and be ready to use those shifts to enable innovation.
Mm.
Create an enabling environment for innovation by learning to adapt to these market shifts that are happening.
Mm.
I leave you with one example of an Indian family that was in the clothing business for quite some time in the heart of Nairobi. And they had a building, one building on, actually two, I think, two buildings on Moi Avenue Street
Mm-hmm.
and one building on Tomboya Street.
Mm-hmm.
I'll not mention their names because they've not paid me to advertise. But what did they realize? Customers were no longer coming to them, they were going to their competitors, and their competitors were getting clothing items from different places.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the old Indian shops? You could buy everything you need: a shoe, a bag, a suitcase, material, blouses, suits, all those things together, fabric to go stitch. So they realized they're losing to their competitors, and they realized the best way to go forward is the mall way. What did they do? Converted their buildings on Moi Avenue and Tomboya into malls.
Minimals, the exhibition spaces.
Exactly. Now, people still remain their customers, but not directly.
Yes.
So what do? I create space for those people who are going from China and they bring your items here. I have done for you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 floors, very well spaced buildings, very well maintained, clean, hygienic, functioning restrooms, optimal security. They're smiling all the way to the bank.
Yeah, because they've even reduced the number of times they have to transact, and they're making more because It's rentals. Interesting. I see you.
So it is understanding these shifts and what advantages you can take. Like we said when we were talking about why do you do this? Why they realized the market protections that were there were no longer there. But then they have to stay in business and they have to stay relevant. And believe you me, they are 100% occupied. And guess what? They didn't ask and they don't ask for goodwill for their shops. That's my parting shot.
Use the shifts and trends you find to adapt and improve your business. Thank you. Thank you from us as African MSME Collective and the Growth Edge as one of our signature shows. We hope it's been useful and you can actually pick up the trends in your industry as well as apply them into your business so that 2025 will be profitable. And we are not having these conversations just because of 2025. Remember, we're working to build sustainably profitable businesses across the continent of Africa. From us at the African MSME Collective, it's Asante Sana. Thank you for being in our space. We hope to see you on the next show, where we'll be actually just taking this conversation a little bit further, well, a lot further, and sharing insights that are actionable today for a brighter tomorrow. Au revoir. Kwaheria Konana. Thank you. And have a good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are across this globe.